So, we're taking steps to encourage a wider range of pupillages and other final stage training opportunities to be made available. So, we need to examine all aspects of our existing regulations, as we've been talking about this evening. So, we need to ensure that the rules that we prescribe are necessary and proportionate. And we're aware in particular that the rules surrounding pupillage are relatively rigid, and we're committed to introducing greater flexibility, one of our core principles for FBT. So any new framework for rules for work-based learning must meet the needs of both chambers and the employed bar and allow new types of training to emerge. So the rules that we're considering, as you can see up here, include the mandatory length of pupillage, when we award the provisional practicing certificate, and the one-to-one relationship between pupil and pupil supervisor. In relation to the principles of affordability and accessibility, we're considering the level of the minimum pupillage funding award, currently set at £12,000 a year. And in terms of maintaining high standards, the fourth of our guiding principles, in this context, we've been looking at the fact that many organisations that provide pupillage have never been through a formal process of authorisation, and we're looking at a light touch system of reauthorisation for all organisations, and we're considering how long before an organisation is then required to be reauthorised under the new authorisation framework. And I'm particularly keen to get that message out that that will be applying to chambers, many of whom won't have gone through any kind of authorisation process. We're also looking at whether we should prescribe outcomes for pupil supervisor training and whether pupil supervisors should be required to undertake refresher training, which they're not at the moment. And we're looking at whether pupillage training courses should be opened up to a wider pool of training providers. So we heard earlier there are also some wider aspects that we're looking at that sit outside the consultation. So just as a reminder really, firstly we're looking at in the future pupillage training needs to be designed to meet the newly defined competencies set out in the professional statement. So we're rolling this out on a pilot basis this year and next. Together with a more in-depth approach to supervision that we're testing with the pilot organisations. And there's still an opportunity to get involved in that if anybody's interested. Come and have a chat with me later. And secondly, we're looking at recruitment and advertising, which during previous consultations has been raised as a concern in the sense that access to pupillage is perhaps the single biggest barrier to increasing diversity in the bar. And some of the employed bar say that the advertising requirements as they stand create barriers to offering pupillage. So we've established a task completion group to review recruitment and advertising and identify those barriers of entry. So over to you now. So we're going to open up to discussion again at the round tables, and there was a good buzz before, so I hope you're going to make good use of this time. There are a lot of questions on pupillage in the consultation, and again we thought we'd focus on just a few of them. Please do jot down your thoughts on your handout, so if you're not a table that's feeding back to us, do write them down. We'll collect them in as part of the consultation process. So the questions that we'd like you to look at are, should the minimum amount paid to pupils be raised from £12,000 a year? Should we allow pupillages to vary in length and not be fixed at 12 months, split into the two non-practicing and practicing periods of 6 months each? And that then leads on to the questions that we have in the consultation about when and how we should award the provisional practicing certificate. And finally, should we allow pupil supervisors to supervise more than one pupil, And should we remove our requirement that a pupil supervisor may only supervise one pupil at a time? So on your handouts, there's a little bit more background on those questions, maybe to prompt a bit of thought. Again, have a discussion. We'll be asking you to feedback one or two key points from your discussion. And you have about 15 to 20 minutes to do that.